What's going on, guys? Magdallan here. Today I'd like to go over my Death's Oath Occultist for the Affliction League. This is my favorite build by far. I make one just about every league. I think it's got a really chill, relaxed play style. It's fun to set up. It is not an MF character, although I have seen some guys on Ninja that have set it up that way, although they tend to have quite a bit less chaos res than my variant does here, and I can't speak to the effectiveness of those characters or exactly what type of content they are MF farming. So my setup is a more traditional version of the build, and you can certainly do the league mechanic. I have been able to clear maps with 6, 7, even 8k wisps without too much problem. You might take a death or two. That's just kind of the name of the game. But ultimately, this is a build that you set up when you're established. A lot of the stuff is fairly expensive, and you set it up to get a farming strategy going and just blast maps and kind of chill. If you are in a position where you really need to eke out all the DPS that you can out of a character because you want a boss, or you're struggling to get currency and so you need a character that can really get in there, you're going to put a headhunter on it and you want to do crazy max wisp, abyss farming, that type of thing, I'd recommend a different character that's not really what this type of thing is going to excel at. But if you want a quasi walking simulator, chaos damage based situation where you can open a map and mostly just kind of run through, throw down some caustic arrow at the tougher enemies and just have a good time, for me there isn't any build in the game that is, that exactly gives you that experience as well as the Death's Oath Occultist. And so there's a lot to go over. Real quickly, I just want to talk about the basic concept of the build. So we're going to use Death's Oath, which is a chest piece that will allow us to use the Death Aura skill. It's an auto skill that does damage around us, chaos damage. And we are going to also take chaos damage as we kill monsters while we have that chest piece on. And so to mitigate that, you use a Glorious Vanity Jewel with Zabakwa, and that will allow us to pick up Divine Flesh, which gives us 50% of elemental damage taken as chaos, and also +5 maximum chaos res. We're then going to stack up our chaos res to 80 or 81, depending on your choices as far as the skill tree, and that will make it so that we can sustain ourselves as we run through maps killing monsters, and it makes that damage more or less negligible. And there have been some, and then real quickly, I guess it's also worth mentioning, and then for additional damage, we supplement with Vol Caustic Arrow, which also does chaos damage, fits in perfectly with the build. There is a standard bow archetype that is fairly accessible in terms of self-crafting that has been used for ages for the build, and we'll talk about that more when we go over the gear specifically. So for the Affliction League, there are 3 things that changed that I think make the build appealing and made me excited to make one this time around. And those are the introduction of charms, which allow us to stack up a bunch of Withered effect. We recently got nerfed in that department in terms of the corruption node that is often anointed for the build. And this allows us to stack way past that original value, which is great considering that if you're doing any wisping whatsoever, the difficulty level of the maps is also significantly higher than it has been in previous leagues, and so we need that damage. The second change is the introduction of the Adorned, which allows us to use corrupted magic jewels in a bunch of sockets to stack up a bunch of chaos damage over time multiplier, as well as a bunch of life, and that makes the gearing a lot smoother and again increases our damage, which we need. And then the third change is the incredibly cheap price of Mage Blood this time around. So you throw a Mage Blood on, fix your res and all of that stuff with your flasks, use the Adorned to boost yourself up with a bunch of corrupted magic jewels, and you use charms to fill out the Withered effect and maybe some other stats that you need, particularly spell suppression. And that allows for what has been for me a very smooth experience. And so real quickly, I know people will ask if I don't mention it. For Pantheon, we're going to run Brine King as well as Abereth, and we are going to kill all the bandits. And now let's talk about the gear. So here's the bow. This one has a movement speed implicit, which I recommend getting. You've got +1 of socketed gems, Chaos damage over time, you can get higher than 85. I've seen as high as 101. You can get better damage over time multi than I have there, but not a huge amount more. And then you need the crafted mod, +2 level of socketed support gems, as well as 19% to chaos damage over time multi. This bow, I think, is about 80 div at the time of this recording, give or take. And I'm not entirely sure. Some of that price might actually just be the movement speed implicit. So you might be able to get a different base and get similar mods for cheaper, but I don't remember exactly what I paid for it, but I believe if you wanted this exact bow, you'd be looking at about 80 div. For the helmet, we are going to use Verdi's Veil, and you will need one with the corrupted implicit socketed skill gems, get a 90% cost and reservation multiplier. That will allow us to get all of the auras that we want for the build going. We are going to use an Impresence amulet, and you will need the one that offers you Despair, has no reservation, if cast as an aura. For our quiver, we want damage over time multi for attack skills, as well as chaos damage over time multi with attack skills. You don't really need that physical damage roll. You want life on there. More is better. Mine only has 46. And then you're going to want a good increased damage with bow skills roll, as well as some attack speed on there if you can get it. I think this one is 25 to 30 div, somewhere in that ballpark. We are going to run boots that have chance to gain onslaught, and then you want to fill out a little bit of res, some life, and then spell suppression. I'm running one rare ring. In my case, I have filled out some strength as well as a few chaos damage mods, get some life on there, and then minimum endurance charge and chance to gain endurance charge is fairly important, and then straight damage increase crafted mod. My other ring is magic. I am running one with the chaos damage implicit, and then chaos damage is crafted on there, and then I believe that is a perfect tier 1 life roll. Indeed it is. And I crafted that myself. I don't know how much you would have to pay to get that exact ring, but people be gouging, so it might be expensive. And then, of course, here is our Death's Oath chest, and you will want one that has an increased damage corrupted implicit. For gloves, I am wearing Asenath's Gentle Touch so that our explosions can proliferate. We are also running Herald of Ash, which I'll go over momentarily. And then, of course, we are running a 4-flask Mage Blood. Here are the flasks. And I actually found that I had more armor total with the Basalt Flask than I did with any other options that were available, and so that's what I'm going with, but you may choose to use something else or just forego all of the extra armor there at your discretion. Now let's talk about the gems. So for our Caustic Arrow, we're going to run a Vol Caustic Arrow, Awakened Void Manipulation, Concentrated Effect, Awakened Vicious Projectiles, Empower, needs to be level 4, and then we're going to run Awakened Swift Affliction. In our chest piece, and it's worth noting, the chest piece does not need to be linked. So don't spend a bunch of currency trying to get one that's 6 linked and also has the corrupted implicit. Just buy one that's got 6 sockets. Or you could always just buy one that doesn't and then try and use corruption currency to make that happen. But I recommend just grabbing one that has 6 sockets and going from there. So Awakened Increased Area of Effect. The main reason that you want this is for the third line there. Supported skills deal 14% more area damage. As most people should be aware, the more multiplier is much more powerful than the increased. And so that's a big deal. So you want the level 5 Awakened Increased Area of Effect. Awakened Void Manipulation. Awakened Swift Affliction. Less Duration. Life Tap. And Efficacy. In our helmet, we are going to run Molten Shell, Increased Duration, Cast when damage taken, and Herald of Ash. And that is the skill that we are slotting into this 90% implicit here. You could change the colors around and try and get some of the other auras in there and maybe eke out some additional unreserved mana, but as you can see with everything running here, it works just fine, and we are running Eldritch Battery, and so we're not actually using the mana for skills. And then here in the boots, we have our Awakened Blasphemy, our Despair Curse, then we have Flame Dash and a Portal, and then in the gloves, we are going to run Vitality, Determination, Malevolence, and Withering Step. And that is the setup for all of the gems, and that is the gear that I'm using. So let's jump over and we will go over the skill tree and all the gems and all of that stuff. All right, let's start with the Ascendancy. Occultist, obviously. We're going to run Unholy Authority for an additional curse, which we will be using for Despair and Temporal Chains when our explosions proliferate. Then we're going to run Profane Bloom for more explosions. We're going to run Void Beacon. That reduces the chaos resistance of enemies as well as reducing their life regeneration rate. And then we're going to run Withering Presence for a bunch of chaos res, more chaos damage, and inflicting withered on enemies as we run around, as well as giving us the line nearby hindered enemies deal 15% reduced damage over time. For our Wildwood, we are taking the one with the charms, obviously, and we are going to grab one that has recover 2% life, energy shield, and mana on kill, as well as 20% increased effective withered. And then we are going to grab another one with 12 spell suppression, as well as 20% increased effective withered. And then finally, I have one here that is 10% chance to suppress spell damage and 20% increased effective withered. I think I bought both of these two for 10 to 14 div, somewhere in that range. And this one was a little bit less, maybe 8, something like that. I'm not sure what the prices are right now, but they're fairly expensive, but they work well. It does the thing you need it to do, and it allows us to cap our spell suppression. As far as the tree, we're going to swing up here, grab this AoE stuff, and then we're going to come up here and slot in our Transcendent Mind. That's going to allow us to grab, I believe, 18 chaos damage over time multi, which is quite a bit. Better than any single jewel, at least in my current setup. You might be able to surpass that value if you have a really good roll on your Adorned jewel. Then over here, we're going to slot in our Glorious Vanity and grab our Divine Flesh here. And again, with any Timeless jewel, you can kind of fish for ones that have, you can try and get some chaos damage on some of these nodes. I did not get any of that. Oh, I did get one, actually, 10% there. So, obviously, if you could get one that had several chaos damage nodes, that would be great. And then here, I got Automaton Studies. And that's adding a little bit to my armor and some physical damage reduction. We're going to swing up here, and we're going to grab Eldritch Battery. Here is our first cluster setup. So we're going to grab a large with Chaos Res on the small nodes, Unholy Grace, Unwaveringly Evil, and Wicked Paw. And then we're going to run a medium with Flow of Life and Unwaveringly Evil. Same thing here. We're going to try and get Chaos Res on all of these to make our life easier. We're going to run one small cluster jewel with Mortifying Aspect. That will give us a bunch more reservation efficiency for Malevolence, as well as a little bit of Chaos Res. And then we are going to throw in over here our first Corrupted Magic Jewel. This one's got 8 chaos damage over time multi and 6% increased life. We're going to swing down here and grab increased area of effective aura skills for the mastery there, and aura effect, and then we're going to grab the chaos mastery here for a level of chaos gems, as well as we lose some additional life and energy shield when we use a chaos skill. But again, that's going to be essentially meaningless. We're not worried about that. Swinging down here, we're going to come on through this way, grab some life here, and then we're going to slot in the Adorned here. Mine is 119% increased effect of jewel socket passive skills containing corrupted magic jewels. It goes up to 150. they become quite a bit more expensive as you approach that value. If I went from 119 to, I believe, 144, then all of my magic corrupted jewels would be giving me one more for each of the mods that they have. And so you'll want to do some math there. I recommend going for one that's about 120. That seems to be the best median between cost and power benefit. But certainly if you have the currency laying around, grabbing a 140 plus is going to be to your advantage. And then here is our Watcher's Eye. All we care about is the 22% to damage over time multiplier while affected by malevolence. And the life roll also is important. Then down here we're going to grab the Reservation Mastery for 8% increased damage for each of your aura or herald skills affecting you. And we're going to grab our other Chaos Mastery for deal 10% more chaos damage to enemies which have energy shield. Here we're going to grab Bow Mastery for area of effect. Grab Inveterate there. And then down here we're going to slot in another damage multi-jewel that has life on it. And then here is our other large setup. Again, Unholy Grace, Unwaveringly Evil, and Wicked Paw. Then we're going to throw in a medium that is again Flow of Life and Unwaveringly Evil. Chaos Res on there as well. And then I had to use one jewel that had Chaos Res on it to get everything capped. If you can manage to get your Chaos Res up past 80%, as you can see, if I take that jewel out, then I don't have quite enough. If you can get your value through your gear, or if you have enough points to grab another jewel socket somewhere and just throw in a rare jewel, maybe one that has like Corrupted Blood and Chaos Res, something like that, then you could potentially slot in a better jewel there. But this is the way that I got my Chaos Res capped, and so it is what it is. And then we have our final jewel here. So I have a total of 4 jewel sockets that are working with the Adorned, but one of them is partially being consumed by having to give me some Chaos Res. So there is some damage that you could get, again, if you could run 4 actual well-optimized jewels in that case. And that is essentially the tree. That is how everything is set up. And as I said, it has worked quite well. So let's throw in a map, and I'll talk a little bit about how the build actually plays in a map scenario. Go ahead and throw Essence on there. And just in case any confusion is there, we're running Vitality, Despair, Malevolence, Determination, Herald of Ash. And the Herald of Ash is just, essentially, it's an aesthetic. I want to see the pretty explosions. I want to use my Celestial Aura MTX, and I want the explosions from Asenath's Gentle Touch to proliferate more easily, and that is what Herald of Ash does for us. All right, so I'm going to run in, trigger our Delirium there. Let's run over here. We're going to Wildwood. For these purposes, I'm just going to kind of run around crazy. And if we get some juice, great. If we don't, doesn't matter. Let's follow this blue. All right, good enough. So a little bit over 1K there. Maybe even a little shy of 1K, but that's fine for the purposes of just showcasing a map. And we're just going to run around. Grab our shrine there.
I lost, dude.
Go ahead and drop an Exalted Orb. Why not? And I've got my Withering Step on. For me, the key is F1, and I'm kind of saving that if I need it. And as you can see, the build's perfectly capable of just kind of running through the map, and you're just going to kill most stuff just by passing by. And then if we need to do some cleanup or we run into some stuff that's a little bit more tanky, then like right now I'm going to fire off the Withering Step. You can throw a Vol Caustic Arrow in there. See here we've got a rare, so I just throw down 1 or 2 shots of the Caustic Arrow, and that takes care of it for us. As you can see, the life recovery is really good. When we do take some hits, we're pretty quickly back up to max. We'll run over here and finish out this little area. Okay, we're gonna drop a ton of maps, evidently. Click that. And we will run over here and take care of the boss. I'm just gonna trigger it, and then we'll work on our Harbinger. And again, I'm not doing anything really. I'm just kind of running around. If something starts hitting me like that, or it looks like it's gonna, not die right away, there I'll just pop the Withering Step. Now that those are dead, I'm gonna hit the boss with the Vol Caustic Arrow, and we're good to go. Looks like there's still some monsters out there. Maybe we'll run over and do one of these guys here. Let's go ahead and corrupt him up. And I'm going to throw a Caustic Arrow down, Withering Step, and we're just going to take care of those. Grab these essences up here, and we'll grab that waste pool map. There we go, good enough. And it looks like maybe we want to go down this way. I see the little section there that I didn't clear. We'll run over there. Oh, was there a mob standing there? Nope. And we'll run over this way. Got our last Harbinger there. See there, that was a pretty decent chain. Depending on how many mobs there are in a given map, based on the mods and the strat that you're running, you can get some really impressive chain explosions going. See, there's a tanky rare. We just Caustic Arrow him down. And if you really get in the shit, then we've got our Vol Molten Shell. Oh, I didn't corrupt that guy. So as you can see, with the essences, I just run up, throw a Vol Caustic Arrow where they're going to spawn, open it up, do it one more time here. And then we just Withering Step, and we're good to go. And I will come back in and pick up my loot and grab any other of the essence monsters that I didn't get on my own. But that is essentially the build. And in my opinion, it's by far the best build in the game that I've ever played for Waste Pool or Toxic Sewer, those maps that have really small, narrow pathways that are running through them. It's just enjoyable. Again, I'm not making the claim that this is a hyper DPS build or that it's the best build for the current league. If you are like me and you already made your Tornado Shot Magic Find character, you farmed up all your currency, you bought the items you wanted to buy, you're in the mid league and you're like, I want to play a build just for fun, this is a great build for that exact purpose. It's capable of doing most stuff that you might do. As I said, you can do some maps that have 5, 6, maybe 7, 8K wisp juice on them, but it's not really for that, and you're probably not going to be taking this in and doing your crazy, Abyss Spire farm and that type of thing. But as far as just a laid-back, chill build experience goes, you just can't beat Death South. And that is about all I've got for you guys today. If you found anything interesting or engaging in the video, please do give me a like and subscribe. It helps the channel out a lot. And I will see you in the next video. I appreciate you.